Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestle News 365. Hope everyone is doing very, very well. As always, we have a ton of WWE news stories to get into today, so let's kick off by talking about reportedly WWE's want and desire to have Cardi B, yes, Cardi B, hosting SummerSlam. Now, as teased on Twitter last night, this is according to Fightful Select. Fightful Select, of course, is Fightful's Patreon service. Be sure to check that out. They do a ton of very exclusive insider information, scoops, whatever you want to call it. They're very, very good, very, very reputable, and very much, very often on the nose with it. Fightful is reporting that WWE sources have told them that they are hoping that they can bring in Cardi B as a host for SummerSlam this year. Now, Fightful are reporting they're not sure if it's a done deal as of yet, but yesterday's location when it comes to SummerSlam isn't confirmed, so a lot of things about SummerSlam aren't confirmed. Now, this whole Cardi B stuff follows on from what is a theme song for this year for SummerSlam as well. Cardi B's Up will be the theme song for this year's SummerSlam. As reported, as I mentioned, by Fightful Select, Fightful has learned that WWE sources are hoping they can bring in Cardi B to be a host for this year's show. Now, obviously, this whole Cardi B thing stems from earlier this year, right? It was a Raw Legends night on the USA Network when they brought in all the legends. They were desperate for that ratings grab, brother. So they had the Raw Legends night on the USA Network. And essentially what they did on that show, they did a 24/7 segment, a 24/7 championship segment, in which I think at the time Angel Garza was the 24/7 champion. He had won it on the New Year's Eve or New Year's Day or whatever edition of some kind of programming or on social media. Anyway, he's the 24/7 champion. And then backstage, there's Tori Wilson, I think is backstage. She goes up to Angel Garza and says, Cardi B is in that room right there. And Angel Garza's going, Cardi B? Cardi B's in there? Oh my gosh. So he walks into the room. Obviously, there's no Cardi B. What happens? R-Truth does the most devastating finisher in all of pro wrestling, the dreaded roll-up, the schoolboy. And he does a roll-up and wins back the 24/7 championship for the 247th time, whatever it is. And because of that segment and because of them talking about Cardi B on Twitter, a lot of people started obviously talking about Cardi B on social media, and it caught the attention of the aforementioned Cardi B. She goes, why is everyone talking about me on social media? Why is everyone talking about me when it comes to WWE? And obviously, she then later found out they were referencing her during this segment. And then Cardi B starts talking about how she was a fan of WWE growing up. Says she was a fan of Melina, Rey Mysterio. I think Batista's involved in there. Starts saying about Eddie Guerrero. Starts saying all of these names. And suddenly everyone's going, Cardi B's a fan of WWE. Cardi B used to watch WWE when she was a kid and all this kind of stuff. And then at the time, there were reports coming out that WWE was actively looking to get Cardi B onto WWE programming somehow. There were rumors about bringing her in for WrestleMania. Now it's looking like SummerSlam might be the most likely location and destination for Cardi B to enter the WWE universe. WWE were really, really, really happy when Cardi B started talking about them earlier this year because they got a load of press and PR on social media. Look, I mean, regardless of whether you're a fan of her music or, I don't really listen to her music. I know of Cardi B. I don't even know if I've ever listened to a song that she's ever done. But look, she's got a huge following on social media, and just her talking about WWE when they did that segment on Raw back in January got WWE trending for like 2 or 3 days. They got all of this free publicity without having to pay a dime to Cardi B, and they realized we can do more there. If she used to be a fan or she is at the very least familiar with the product, we can get her in. She can promote her song, she can promote her album, whatever. But mostly, who wins out of this? WWE really wins because they get the promotion. Obviously, Cardi B, as I mentioned, can promote the song, she can perform the song, she can trend on social media. But the big thing was getting Cardi B inside of the stadium, arena, whatever they want to do, SummerSlam. So WWE's hoping for that. Whether or not it happens or not, we'll have to wait and see. WWE loves celebrity. They love, especially sort of more major celebrities like Cardi B. I mean, they love just even fringe celebrity. This is the company that had someone from, was it the Bachelorette or something like that on Monday Night Raw with Angel Garza for like 3 or 4 weeks last year. No joke. So they'd love to have Cardi B in there, obviously. And their last celebrity attractions that they did at WrestleMania with Bad Bunny and Logan Paul went very well. So they're obviously looking at this going, Cardi B could do the same. Now, I don't think Cardi B is going to have a match. I doubt Cardi B is going to take a stunner from Kevin Owens in the same way that Logan Paul did. But she'll be involved. And look, it'll be an attraction. It'll be an attraction. And this SummerSlam event, even though there is reportedly to be a bit of chaos surrounding it as to the location, the dates, all this kind of stuff, getting big names in, whether it's Cardi B, whether whether it's John Cena, whether it's whoever, is certainly going to make the event feel bigger. So we'll have to wait and see. Only time will tell as to the update of Cardi B and SummerSlam. Let's move on and talk about Big E and Aleister Black. Now, we did a SmackDown reaction last night once SmackDown had gone off the air, talking about where was Aleister Black and Big E. Of course, they closed SmackDown last Friday. Aleister Black's return was a big moment. He cost Big E the Intercontinental Championship. And then what happens this week on SmackDown? Nothing. We hear nothing about it. Only a very select, quick reference by Michael Cole in commentary, and then nothing. It led to a lot of people, myself included, saying, where are they? Why did they not appear on this week's show? Well, Aleister Black and Big E were reportedly held off of this week's SmackDown on Fox for a very specific reason. Now, last week, as I mentioned, SmackDown featured Aleister Black's return to television as he interrupted the Fatal 4-Way main event between Apollo Crews, Big E, Kevin Owens, and Sami Zayn that saw Apollo Crews retain the championship. Black hit the ring and dropped Big E with Black Mass, which allowed Crews to pin Big E for the victory. Now, in an update, Black and Big E were both backstage for this week's edition of SmackDown on Fox, but were not used. Now, the reason why is being reported by PW Insider. They are reporting there was a creative decision made to let the new feud hang for a week or so as to not rush the storyline. It was described as a situation where WWE Creative is actually letting things breathe for once. So that is certainly going to be interesting. I don't know how I feel about that. The idea of, see, we're actually making things breathe. We're letting things breathe for once. We're taking our time. This is a story that, not that there's any, I would advocate to rush any storyline. I would never be like, oh, rush it. No doubt about that. But if there was ever a storyline, you know, to capitalize on, we haven't seen Aleister Black on WWE television in person for what, 7, 8, 9 months, however long it was. You have this big return last week, and if you don't want to feature him on the show, that's fine. That's fine. But to have no video package, they love video packages. Raw, you have about 25 million of them. SmackDown, you have enough of them, and you can't find any time in that show to do one video package to say, this is what happened last week, we'll address it next week. Nothing. I don't have a problem necessarily with them being off the show as long as you can explain a reason as to why. There has to be some form of week-to-week storytelling. It kind of felt like last night they were just forgotten about. And it's typical WWE, isn't it, in the sense of the one time where you're like, well, can you update us as to what is happening with this? They don't do it. And you could say, well, you're talking about it now and you're discussing it now, so maybe they're just building anticipation. I disagree. I disagree. Look, we didn't have to have Aleister Black cut a promo last night. We didn't have to have Big E cut a promo last night. We didn't need any of that. At the very least, we could have had a recap package and a little graphic to say next week it's going to be addressed. It just felt like an afterthought. And you have Aleister Black's big return the week prior, and already it feels like it's been forgotten and pushed back due to other things. Is that the best way to start off a return? Is that the best way to start off a feud that's got potential? I don't think so. So we'll have to wait and see. Look, if it carries on to be a great success, this feud, then it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that they didn't address it this week. But if they struggle and if the feud doesn't hit, then you can point back to this week and say, well, you didn't capitalize on an angle that was hot, that piqued interest. You waited when you shouldn't have waited. Of all the times to wait on these storylines, this is the one that they do it on a week after debuting it. It doesn't make any sense to me. And for me, it feels like justification of, oh, we're going to let it breathe. I disagree. I disagree. Let's move on to the big story yesterday when it comes to New Japan Pro Wrestling and WWE. Now, when it comes to the AEW comments, I am going to be doing an AEW video today addressing the whole Tony Khan promo on Nick Khan, which I enjoyed. Obviously, was incredibly divisive on social media, as is social media. I mean, it's just divisive in general, isn't it? But I enjoyed it. I did enjoy it. Now, according to a new report that came out yesterday by Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer newsletter, WWE and New Japan Pro Wrestling are in talks about an exclusive partnership. Now, in the past 2 decades, of course, WWE has always had this mentality that it was the strongest wrestling company in the world. It had a monopoly over the wrestling business, and it didn't want to work with outside companies. It was us against the world. Vince McMahon killed off the territories and ate them all up. Why would he start to work with territories once again? It didn't make any sense. But this mentality could be changing because, as I mentioned, a new report by Dave Meltzer in the Wrestling Observer newsletter, WWE and New Japan have been in talks about WWE becoming the exclusive American partner of New Japan Pro Wrestling. Now, it was reported that these talks date back to late March, early April, and would include WWE sending talent and allowing its top stars to work in New Japan Pro Wrestling. Now, as of right now, this is why it was certainly eye-opening, not just because WWE working with another company. It was eye-opening because New Japan Pro Wrestling right now has working agreements with companies based in the United States, such as AEW and Impact Wrestling, as all three organizations have been sharing talent with one another as to what has been referred to as the opening of the forbidden door. That's a Tony Khan saying, isn't that forbidden door? Now, according to the report by Meltzer, Nick Khan, of course, WWE President and Chief Revenue Officer, has been the one representing WWE in these discussions, as he sees WWE as part of the overall wrestling landscape, changing up the attitude of the past several decades. Well, it looks like there's a bit of a disagreement, shall we say, in terms of this reporting, or certainly more information, more details coming out of this report, because Mike Johnson of PW Insider is reporting that according to sources from both sides, there has been communication in recent months and talks between the promotions center around the possibility of Daniel Bryan being able to work both some dates for New Japan Pro Wrestling and WWE. Now, of course, Daniel Bryan's WWE contract expired after his WWE Universal Championship match on Friday Night SmackDown against Roman Reigns last month. In recent interviews, Daniel Bryan has admitted he wants to be able to work with WWE and other promotions, did mention New Japan Pro Wrestling by name as well. Now, WWE through NXT has established a working relationship with other independent promotions in the past, but WWE really hasn't had an open talent exchange with a major promotion since the late 1990s, 1997. Most importantly, I guess ECW. They had one with AAA in the late 90s as well, when they had some of the AAA wrestlers appear on Raw. They had USWA as well, which obviously got Jerry Lawler and Brian Christopher and all that kind of stuff in. Who knows? Who knows? When it comes to this story, when it comes to Daniel Bryan really being the center of discussion, when it comes to these meetings, I think that makes more sense. Like I said yesterday, we did a big breakdown of it yesterday, and I shared my thoughts on it yesterday, and 24 hours later, my feelings don't really change, to be honest, when it comes to this potential working relationship between WWE and New Japan Pro Wrestling. I'll believe it when I see it. And that's it. WWE doesn't work well with others. Historically, they've never worked well with others. I don't see it changing because a new president of the company or a chief revenue officer of the company. The reason I don't see it changing is because Vince McMahon is still the chairman of the board. He's still the CEO. There might be other people offering him ideas. There might be other people suggesting things to Vince McMahon, but if you think Vince McMahon's going to change his mentality overnight, I don't see that. What I do see, and I think this might be slightly misinterpreted here, is that Daniel Bryan, like he has said in these interviews prior to his contract expiring, he said, I want to figure out a situation where I can work dates for WWE, but I can also work dates for New Japan, and also work dates for maybe another independent promotion. He openly said, I don't know if that's possible, but I've got to ask. And he's trying to figure out what he can do right now. I think this comes down to WWE's desire to keep Daniel Bryan. How much do they want to keep Daniel Bryan, and what can Daniel Bryan negotiate for himself? The issue, I suppose, from the WWE side of things would be that if Daniel Bryan gets this exclusively into his contract, say this isn't a working relationship between WWE, it's just a special clause that Daniel Bryan has. If Daniel Bryan gets into his updated WWE contract or his new WWE contract that he can work exclusively for New Japan on certain dates of the year, or he can work for WWE most of the time, but he has a clause that he can do Wrestle Kingdom in the Tokyo Dome or Dominion or something like that, or wrestle in the G1, whatever. If he has that in his contract, that changes everything in WWE in terms of contracts, because if one guy gets it, who's to say that other guys can't? Who's to say that Roman Reigns can't say, well, I want that in my next contract? Who's to say that Bobby Lashley, Drew McIntyre, even some of the part-timers, Edge, Goldberg, whatever, as if Goldberg would go to New Japan, but you get my point. It changes everything. It's like guaranteed contracts coming in the mid-90s. Once one guy has it, all it takes is for the next top guy to say, I want that as well. Or when someone else's contract's expiring, they say, look, I'm not re-signing with the WWE unless I can work with New Japan, unless I have guaranteed money, unless I have specific dates. All that kind of stuff, that's how these negotiations works. It takes one person. So that's why I'm kind of a bit surprised that WWE would be so willing to allow Daniel Bryan to be part of these negotiations, but I mean, look, time will tell. Time will tell. Like I said yesterday, I'll believe it when I see it, because I've been a fan of pro wrestling at this point for over 20 years, and during my time in watching professional wrestling, which might not be as long as you watching this, or certainly as long as people on social media that might see this clip, but historically, WWE just doesn't play well with others. And the only time over the course of the most recent history that they've entered these agreements with other companies is one, that they're trying to buy them, or two, eventually they want to either, purchase them or just get all of the talent that they have for their own use. WWE very rarely enters a partnership that's mutually beneficial. They want everything, and eventually they've got an end game. That's always the way into these agreements, whether it's Evolve, whether it's the promotions over here in the United Kingdom, then they set up NXT UK and basically kill off the independent scene in the United Kingdom, all this kind of stuff. They always have an end game, and that end game benefits one company, that's WWE. So I'll see it when I believe it. That's it. I will see it when I believe it. And like I said, if Daniel Bryan gets that into his deal, he can work those Tokyo Dome shows, or he can work for New Japan on select dates. One, how long does that last? Does WWE truly reinforce that? I guess if it's in writing, they can do it, but they might never do it again. Or you've got these other talents that say, well, I want it now. Daniel Bryan got it. Why can't I get it? And it changes everything. Fundamentally, it changes everything. So, like I said, I'll believe it when I see it. I'll believe it when I see it. And I know a lot of people yesterday, and we'll touch on this in a second on social media, a lot of the WWE and New Japan stars were teasing this and doing all this kind of stuff. I think they're kind of the same when they're sort of like, well, I'll believe it when I see it, because I don't know. McIntyre, yesterday, Drew McIntyre put out a tweet where he spelled Okada with the first letters of all of the sentences, kind of like the Becky Lynch thing she did at WrestleMania. He posted a picture of two matches between him and Kofi Kingston, one at Over the Limit in 2010, one this week on Raw, obviously where the winner will face Bobby Lashley at Hell in a Cell. And McIntyre said, quote, "On Monday, Kofi will accept his doom at my hands." Obviously that spells O-K-A-D-A, which is Okada. Rocky Romero, obviously New Japan Pro Wrestling talent, says the forbidden window, and posted a picture of Titan Towers there in Stamford, Connecticut. Kenta, this is a great one. Kenta tweeted, quote, "Kenta versus Hideo Itami," which I enjoyed immensely. So they're having fun about it, because I think they know. Like I said, they'll believe it when they see it as well. They're not stupid. If you're in pro wrestling, or if you're a fan of pro wrestling, you'll know that you'll hear this kind of stuff and go, really? Really? I mean, it might happen. I mean, but the latest reports from PW Insider are saying, well, it's kind of centered around Daniel Bryan and what he wants to do. So, look, it's a fascinating story. It could be one of the biggest stories in the year, or it could be, it could be a nothing story. And I know, as I mentioned, we're going to do the video talking later about Tony Khan and his shoot to Nick Khan just before Dynamite went on the air last night. But I kind of agree with him in terms of, the promo. He's been working with New Japan Pro Wrestling recently, and he's had the IWGP United States Heavyweight Championship defended multiple times on Dynamite in recent weeks. And these discussions between WWE and New Japan have been going on since May, April. Well, they haven't got very far if New Japan is still working with AEW. Now, you could say, well, maybe AEW is getting stiffed by New Japan. Maybe they don't know. Maybe they haven't been told. I'll believe it when I see it. And I know it's very repetitive, and I know I've said that a few times now, but I really do think that. I'll believe it when I see it. If it happens, it'll be massive. I just don't see it happening. I really don't. Now, I do want to talk about some other things here. There's this story, and it's a story that's been floating around, and I kind of had alluded to it slightly here on the channel before, but I didn't want to go in too much in depth about it because it was a rumor and no one had really gone on the record, shall we say, about it. So I was slightly, like I said, hesitant to discuss it. But there's a rumor, there's a story circulating online about a WWE talent reportedly hiding a phone as a camera in the WWE dressing room bathroom. Now, it was revealed that a WWE talent found the phone and also found, quote, less than savory files stored on the device. Now, fans had discussed this story extensively over the past couple of weeks or so, certainly the last week, and many people actually had believed that the incident happened recently within WWE. However, it's reported that this is not the case. Dave Meltzer clarified this in the latest edition of the Wrestling Observer newsletter. He said that the incident actually transpired several years ago at a WWE wrestler's party. He said, quote, there was a story going around past week regarding a wrestler who had a hidden phone as a camera in a bathroom, and a talent found the phone and found less than savory files stored. The story got out this week, and people thought it was something in the recent WWE dressing room. And now it's been reported, as I mentioned, that the party had happened at WWE star's residence, and Meltzer added that the wrestler is no longer with the company. It was noted that WWE did not release the wrestler, though, due to the phone-related matter mentioned above. When it comes to the phone owner and the person responsible for the entire episode, several members of the WWE locker room have known about the story for many years. However, WWE management wasn't aware of what happened until a major star recently went up to officials. This is what they had to say, quote, it was actually something at a party several years ago at a residence of a wrestler who is not with the company, not related to this at all. And as far as the person who owned the phone and was doing so, a number of wrestlers have known about this story for years, but it wasn't up until recently that management found out about the story when a major star went to management and that wrestler is also no longer with the company. Now, I think it's unfair. I think it's unfair to try and speculate as to who this is, who the wrestler's residence was, and who the wrestler responsible for hiding the phone in the bathroom. All that kind of stuff is. That's not fair. That's speculation. Until we have facts about that, we'll have to wait and see. It's a horrifying story. It's a horrifying story, and I don't know if that report is kind of alluding to that was the reason why this talent was let go, but WWE management didn't know about it for a while. It's who are WWE hiring? Some of the people, rightfully so, that WWE has let go recently. Again, I think they've been justified in. Maybe they haven't let them go for the controversial reasons, but who are WWE hiring? Some of the people that are involved in this company at the moment are crazy, and it's a horrible story. And the fact is that there is an update on this rumor, and you would think that the update would be that it never happened. It's just salacious rumors, but this update is that it did happen. It just didn't happen when we thought it did or where we thought it did. This hidden camera thing did happen, but it didn't happen in a locker room. It happened in a wrestler's bathroom at their residence. I don't know what's worse. If you're having a party at someone's residence and you're hiding cameras in the bathroom, I mean, come on. So, I mean, like I said, who are WWE hiring? And I don't blame WWE for letting them go. I'm just surprised it took this long for it to come out. I think it's crazy. I think it's absolutely crazy. Now, speaking of people being let go, Josiah Williams is reported is gone from WWE. It's another one that is being posted publicly, and this was first reported by Fightful. They learned that, unfortunately, Josiah Williams, who was a part of the WWE cuts this past week. Of course, he's appeared on various WWE digital properties, did the theme music for Cameron Grimes, and if you see any, WWE, specifically mostly NXT or Performance Center social media, Josiah Williams is heavily involved in that. And, to be honest, he was a success story in the sense that this is a guy that started off, I'm a content creator here on YouTube and on social media. And if you're watching this or whatever, he's a success story. He did the whole Wrestling Flow stuff on Instagram mainly, but it was on YouTube and all that kind of stuff as well. I saw him first on Instagram. I saw him do the Adam Cole remix or the Undisputed Era remix. And it was so good and so great. The series was so good and so well put together. And the guy is so talented that he managed to get himself a job in the WWE. That's a dream story. That is such a dream story, and everyone that's worked with him in WWE has nothing but good things to say about him. Obviously, the guy is immensely talented. Everyone he's worked with says the guy is immensely talented, great to work with, great guy, was well-liked, and it sucks. And it sucks about this whole thing this past week of people losing their jobs that had... they did nothing wrong. They were incredibly talented. They were fired for being good employees, essentially. And I get it. It's business, and cuts happen in business, and departments get merged together. And this is just another ripple effect of the pandemic. Not so much as a cost-cutting measure. Whilst they did, to save money here, they realized that they maybe didn't need all these people, and they're merging all these departments together because they realize they can be just as productive while spending a fraction of the overhead. I get it. It's business, but it's horrible. It's always horrible to see anyone talented or well-liked or someone that doesn't deserve to lose their job. It's horrible. The only saving grace here, I think, when it comes to Josiah Williams is that the guy will land on his feet because he's immensely talented. He was let go previously by WWE due to the pandemic, and he came back. Who knows if he'll come back again, but look, there will be plenty of other, not just wrestling companies, but companies in general, social media companies, whatever. The guy, I think, will be fine. There's been lots of discussion, hasn't there, about AEW and their music, whether their music's any good or maybe improvements in their music. Well, obviously they've got licensed music now, but if I was AEW, I'd say get this guy in. He already did the theme music for Shawn Spears, which is a great song. Who's to say don't get him in? Every entrance theme he's done has been awesome. The remix he did for the Adam Cole entrance for the Undisputed Era was awesome. I'd be, if I'm AEW or Impact Wrestling, MLW, whoever, I'm saying get this guy in. He's talented. He's unbelievably talented. And finally, let's talk about this Monday because The Miz is coming back. Now, after being eaten by zombies, yes, I know people were concerned that The Miz would no longer be alive after being eaten by zombies. The Miz is back. During last night's episode of Friday Night SmackDown, it was announced that The Miz will return this coming Monday on Raw. This will be his first appearance on television since losing that zombie lumberjack match to Damian Priest at WrestleMania Backlash. Obviously, it's the first appearance as well since The Miz tore his ACL, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens when it comes to The Miz. It was revealed that Rhea Ripley will be a guest on Miz TV. The Raw Women's Champion, of course, is scheduled to defend her championship against Charlotte Flair at Hell in a Cell on June 20th. I think Charlotte Flair is also going to be involved in this segment as well. It's just good to see The Miz back on television. Obviously, we don't have an update about his injury right now, how long he's expected to be out, the severity of his injury. The most important thing, I think, is that getting The Miz back on TV. I've pitched to have him as the general manager of Raw. Even though he's got the injury, it's kind of like an Eric Young situation with Impact Wrestling. He can cut promos. He's very good at cutting promos. So glad to have The Miz back on television. I don't think it'll save Raw. If Raw's anything like this past Monday, it'll be terrible to watch. Nevertheless, guys, that's a good way to end it. As always, this is just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on all of the WWE news stories we've spoken about today? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about WWE, AEW, Impact Wrestling, New Japan Pro Wrestling, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. So be sure to get involved in the community. Drop a comment below. All opinions are welcome. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button too. Really does help us out here on YouTube. Go up the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestling News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right corner of the screen right now. Or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or have you come across this video today. And I'll speak to you again very, very soon. Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.